Well, only one way to know if the voice is coming back, and that's to test it. This has been a raunchy cold. I can still feel it in my sinuses, and you guys are probably going to hear that. Those of you that listen or watch daily, just a slight change, but it is coming back little by little by baby little steps. I still got the inhaler right over there for the cough. This has been what a hellacious, man. This is like if you're a broadcaster, the things you don't want to get, the short list is a nasty cough and laryngitis, and this one had both. But we're coming around. Thought I'd rock a little Ace Ventura shirt today to, I don't know, personal pick me up. A present from me to me as we engage on this new week of fantasy basketball. We're into week 3 now. We're, I think, officially in the grind. I don't know. I guess it's up to you if you think you're in the grind or not. I think we are. And we've got another weekend to recap. One thing I found that I still can't do is laugh. If I laugh, the cough is coming. So no fun today on the show. Make you one promise on today's program, and that is we will have no fun at all. We have a lot to cover, though, and I appreciate you guys already getting questions into the chat room. That's very cool, those that are hanging out live. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to very many of them today, or at least on this morning show, because is a 2-show day. We we'll have this morning one. We'll go through the weekend in reverse chronological lightning round Monday. We'll also preview the big Monday card. There's a lot going on tonight. And then this afternoon, about 5-ish or so hours from now, we'll be joining forces with the great Derek Ball to give you the week ahead show. And that's one where we'll do a few more questions. So if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat room. I don't know if I'm going to get to them today. If I don't, hit them in the afternoon. We'll almost definitely get to those questions because that's just sort of a different format. The show itself is typically quicker, less content, and then you can get into the questions faster. Whereas this one, we've got all 30 teams to cover going backwards. We've got a Monday of, what do we have, like a dozen games tonight or something crazy? So let's dive right on in. First of all, hello, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today, Week 3. This is a Sports Ethos presentation, and I'm your host, Dan Besbris. Find me over on social at DANBESBRIS. Very cool that we are actually approaching 19,000 Twitter follows. 20 is going to be a big deal for me, so maybe you can help get us there. And I'll start at the outset of the show by just requesting, please, everybody, again, find me on social, but like, rate, subscribe, whatever those little quick things you can do are. Pause your brain for just a moment and go find the thumbs up button. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on the pod, go find the subscribe button. Let's keep growing this little sucker until it hits the moon. For those uninitiated, the reverse chronological, he fumbles over himself. Reverse chronological lightning round is where we go backwards Sunday, Saturday, and then Friday, sometimes if we need it, to hit each team in the NBA's most recent basketball game, just to get the most recent updated data and kind of reset ourselves for the week ahead. I find this is the best way to do it. Just see what everybody's been doing. What has every team in the NBA been doing? We'll go from there. Let's start at the top. The Phoenix Suns got a win at Detroit, which, that's one that they probably should get. The Pistons are a little bit better this year than they were last season, but they're still the Pistons. They're still 2-5. And Cade Cunningham cannot stop turning the basketball over. But as far as fantasy stuff in this game goes, there wasn't a whole lot of it. Phoenix still without Bradley Beal, still without Devin Booker, who came back for one ball game and then abandoned ship again, this time for a calf issue. So that's off to a bad start. And everybody said, no, you can't draft Kevin Durant because he's the guy on that team that's going to be injured the whole time. And he's the only one of these damn dudes that's been upright so far. By the way, kudos to KD, who have, with this gigantic ball game, after kind of a weird start, particularly at the free throw line, he's back up to number 14 now. So, no problem. And a lot of that is the 4 turnovers for 9-cat. And a lot of that is sort of small sample size theater where he's going to be passing DeAndre Ayton, much as I've enjoyed his start as this season goes. Almost definitely going to see guys like Lauri Markkanen fall back a little bit. It's just sort of, again, we've only had 6-7 ball games, so little things go a long way. And for KD right now, if you're, for instance, if you just punted turnovers, he moves in front of most of those guys we just mentioned already. KD's number 8 in 8-cat right now, and I don't expect his turnovers to stay that high, but whatever. You guys didn't come to hear me talk about Kevin Durant. Eric Gordon is a reasonable stream when both Beal and Booker are out. You just hope that he hits his shots, and he did in this ball game. And then over on the Detroit side, Marcus Sasser is playing his butt off so far this year. 30 minutes in this one. Who are the sort of Pistons losers in this? Well, there was no Jaden Ivey in this ball game. There was no Alec Burks in this ball game, so they were quite thin in the backcourt. And, Sasser most definitely earned the minutes he got, but it's going to get a little more complicated for him when Burks and Ivey are in there. And that's why I'm not saying you absolutely positively have to pick him up. I think you can kind of watch from the sidelines here. Plus, he's not going to shoot this clip all season long. I don't care how good he is. He's just not going to hit whatever it is, 50 some odd % of his 3-pointers all year. And I feel like, maybe you get in and you stream it, but by the time you do, it's probably too late. Asar Thompson has been remarkable. I said on a show last week that I thought we'd have to sort of suffer through some more rookie learning curve stuff to really cash in on the fact that his rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks are basically elite for what he's at. Like, this is a wing player who rebounds well, assists well for where he plays on the floor. Steals and blocks are amazing. Percentages are bad right now, and he's still a top 30 play to this point. Is he going to slow down a little bit? Probably. Eventually, the rigors of an NBA season will take their toll, but he looks like he may be the rookie steal so far, and that's considering that Chet Holmgren, to this point, is a first-rounder. I will remind you guys, as much as I love old dudes, Chet Holmgren is on the Dan Basper's Old Man squad. I feel like I'm going to have to say that 1,000 times because nobody's going to remember that I did put a young guy on there. Killian Hayes, no, we're not going to buy in on that. This is, again, no Jaden Ivey. Jalen Duren got ejected for 2 flagrant 1 fouls in the same ball game. One of them I know was undercutting. It was invading Kevin Durant's landing space on a 3-pointer. The other one, I think he caught somebody with an elbow, if I'm remembering right. He'll be fine. This was always to be expected. He wasn't going to be a first-rounder all season long. After a couple of slightly slower ball games, he's down around number 30, which is still very good. But you're also seeing the blocks come down. You knew they weren't going to stay at 2 per game. Turnovers should come down from here. And then I think some of the other stuff can more or less hang out where it was. But, we're getting whatever. It was a great start. You're never going to get first-round value back for him in a trade. I still think you could maybe reach out, try to get like a top 40 guy back, see what happens. Maybe nothing. Doesn't matter. This game, by the way, sealed the fate on Isaiah Stewart, who I just I don't think that he's a standard league guy. I went back and forth a little bit on this one, and I'm done with it. He's number 158. He's actually been playing kind of okay so far. He doesn't get defensive stats, and when Duren's out there, he's not even rebounding as much as we'd need him to. It's not worth it. Streamer level only. Raptors, Spurs, overtime. Scotty Barnes is out of his mind right now. And look, this is not meant to rain on the Scotty Barnes parade because I didn't think he was going to take this kind of step forward. This is a sell high. Even if you think he's going to be very good this year, this is a sell high because right now he's number 5 in 9-cat. What do we think is going to come down? Probably the 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Maybe that holds. 3.2 combined defensive stats. There aren't many guys in the NBA that hold that type of line throughout an entire year. So expect some kind of drop off. It's also possible that he hasn't been doing this long enough this season for you to get proper value back on Barnes, meaning you might try to go get a top 25 guy and people are going to rebuff those offers. And then you might go try to get a top 30 guy and maybe you get a little bit of a sniff there. But I don't think that I would sell him for top 40. I think you're better off just seeing what happens for another week or two, because if he keeps this up for another week, then you could probably sell him for a top 25 guy. And then you probably do, because at some point this is all going to level off. But the question is to what point? And then again, if you're like, he's going to be better than that 50-ish, 50 range, I think, where he was going. So you don't need to sell for that. You can sell for higher than that. And every game he has a good performance, people are going to buy in more to the idea that he's a top 20. And that's where you start to think about maybe cashing in a little bit. Dennis Schroeder's just plugging along. Crazy. Jakob Poeltl missed his 2 free throws, but with no Precious Achiuwa, he's certainly been a whole heck of a lot better. He was barely playable first 3 or 4 games of the season. Last few, he's been much better. So fire up your Jakobs. And Gary Trent, who's got 29 minutes in this game and did nothing with it, remains outside the top 200. And with every passing day, I put another you can drop him out into the universe. And at some point, everybody will, and then we can stop worrying about it. Now, if you're holding Trent, you're hoping he gets moved. Because if he gets moved to a team that wants him, they'll probably let him have a little bit more wiggle room. This Raptors team just has no real place for him and what they're doing right now. Even with the minutes, his place is to just space the floor. He's not handling the ball at all. So, yeah, you're talking luxury stash in kind of a best case scenario. Other side, Victor Wembanyama, another amazing ball game. He's coming on. I think I personally thought the learning curve would be more than a week, but apparently no. He's number 27 in 9-cat right now. And there's going to be ups and downs along the way, but you're already seeing all the crazy things that a man of his size and athletic ability can do. Enjoy the ride, because you probably drafted him at 20. Maybe sooner if it was right at the very end after those giant preseason games. You might have taken him at 15. It's not like you're going to sell for something more than that. You just do it. Keldon Johnson's been surprisingly good so far. I do still think the bottom will start to fall out on that one, because I had Keldon Johnson in a few spots last year, and he wasn't this good. 17 points, 2 threes, 6 boards, 4 assists. I mean, the boards, the assists, the steals are high. The field goal percent is higher than expected. Maybe he keeps something like this up, but I can't believe it. So I would say sell high on Keldon Johnson. No Devin Vassell. Sounds like he's not going to be out quite as long as initially thought. Malachi Branham came in and shot 8 for 9 in 25 minutes, but that's not going to be enough to get it done. Zach Collins is rolling now. He's gotten the turnovers a little bit better in check. He's pushed himself inside the top 90, and a lot of that actually is still because he's averaging 3 turnovers a game, but everything else is wonderful for Zach so far. In fact, any Collins you drafted has been a pretty good hit. Zach, 14 points, 7 boards, almost 5 assists, a steal, a block, and a 3-pointer. Great start to the year. Just ride that thing out. And then the other news on the Spurs is that it's possible, and YouTubers are going to see that little message pop up on their screen because we're floating over the Basketball Monster page, that Wemby might sit out some back-to-backs, so keep an eye on that, and we'll get our first data point, if he does sit it out, on who you might want to pick up on the Spurs as a future game replacement. Oh, also, I'm very much not in the you need to hold Jeremy Sohan camp. I've seen some folks on Twitter say, again, that he's off to a good start this year with 9 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 5 assists, and 1.2 steals. But I would remind everybody that that makes him a positive in 2 categories. He's league average or worse in the other 7. That's not actually good. Anyway. Cavaliers starting to look more like themselves here. Put the defensive clamps on the Warriors, who just couldn't get shots to fall. And when that happens, they're not going to win. Clay was cold. Jonathan Kuminga took way too many shots. He was also very cold. Andrew Wiggins has been cold since the first moment this season began. And I'll say the same thing I've said in every show, so we'll just make it quick. He is both a buy low and a player I don't want on my fantasy team. An unholy matrimony of thoughts. Draymond Green, 18 points, 8 assists, 3 steals, a block. He is basically up to full tilt now, and he's amazingly inside the top 100 on only 26 minutes of ball game. The fear here, of course, is what does this do to Chris Paul, who only played 25 minutes, still can't get his shot to drop. And when the other Warriors aren't shooting well, Chris Paul's assists dry up. So this is a reason for concern. I'd love to sit here and tell you that Chris Paul is just cooking and nothing can go wrong. He's still fine to this point. Number 83 in 9-cat on the season. Oh, that's a totals rank, isn't it? But he's falling, and the Draymond Green stuff is a pretty big part of it. But he's also shooting 31.5% from the field. So presumably as that levels, maybe everything turns out okay. I would be a little bit concerned with Chris Paul. And I have him in a lot of spots, so I am a little bit concerned with Chris Paul. But you're not going to do anything with it. I'm getting should I drop messages after one or two bad ball games. Warriors are trying to figure out how to fit the pieces together. Let's also remember that the guys that are coming in after the fact, which is CP3 on this club, are going to be the guys that have to figure out where they fit schematically. And he's typically getting 25 to 31 minutes a ball game, so I don't think we need to panic there. 29 minutes for Chris Paul should generally be enough if any of his shots would actually go in. Also worth noting, Moses Moody probably gets a spot start if Klay Thompson sits there back-to-back coming up tonight. Cavs side, we got a good one out of Max Strus, 15 points, 3 threes, 4 boards, 4 assists, and a steal. This was with the team healthy. He also played a team-high 36 minutes. That's the number that I am grabbing onto. As people are like, why am I sticking with Max Strus through the cold ones? It's because he's playing 36 damn minutes a ball game right now. And it's not because a bunch of guys are out. It's because they just want to play him 36 minutes a game. He's shooting 37%, which is not that far off for him. So it's possible he could just have kind of a bad shooting year. But I also have to assume that's going to get up to about 41. And if his role stays largely the same, and you get the more like 4+ rebounds, 4 or 5 rebounds instead of the lower number in Miami, and the 3 assists or more because he's just out there so damn long, that's how he stays as a fantasy value. So I'm not moving on from him, not until I see his minutes come down. If that starts to happen, I'll change my predictions on him. And then with Karis LeVert, this is as close as he's been to efficient, which is crazy because he's still shooting 40% from the field and 63% of the foul line. But he's been kind of fun, dare I say. He also got 32 minutes off the bench. Cavs have gone to a little bit of a tighter rotation, he says, while also noting that Tristan Thompson played 11 minutes in this ball game. But some of that is Jared Allen still kind of getting worked up to his full bore. I like that the Cavs are going Tom Thibodeau with their main guys these days. If you're healthy and you're upright, you're probably going to play 35 minutes a game. Sweet. LaMelo finally woke up. 30 points, 10 boards, 13 assists, 5 3-pointers, a steal, and a block. It's not nearly enough to get him back where we need him to be, but he's now up to number 70 in 9-cat. And his shooting percentage is up to 34. But he was in the high 20s, so this is a step in the right direction. People were saying you could buy low on LaMelo Ball. I don't think you ever could buy low on LaMelo because somebody drafted him at 11. What do you think they're going to sell him for? Now, you think you're going to go get him for a top 50 guy? That was never going to happen. You have to understand how the person's brain works who drafted this player, and reasonably so. If you drafted him in the first round, now I don't think LaMelo's a first rounder unless you're punting field goal and maybe also turnovers, but somebody wants him for their team build, and they took him at 11 or whatever it was, and so they weren't going to give up on him because he couldn't shoot because they weren't worried about that anyway. In any event, no real fantasy news in this ballgame other than Terry Rozier sitting it out, dealing with an injury. Brandon Miller got the spot start and struggled against other teams' first units, but he'll be okay. You're not going to punt there. He played 36 minutes. That's, again, opportunity. That's the number you're looking at. Kyrie's starting to wake up. Kind of coasted through the first couple of ball games. Then he had an injury. Now he's back and he's playing better. He's up to number 27 per game in 9-cat, and he's still shooting just 44% from the field. But he's getting those blocks from the guard spot like he always does. The threes will come up. The field goal percent will come up. Don't worry about Kyrie. How about Grant Williams, though? How many podcasts or feeds were talking about Grant Williams after his first 2 good ball games? He's number 58 in 9-cat right now, which, by the way, look, I'll admit he's not going to shoot 56% from the year. He's probably not going to average 4 3-pointers a game for the season. But the one thing I did say was if he started to get even like a defensive stat per ball game, then he becomes an auto ad. And he's getting a defensive stat per ball game. And he's up to now 51% rostered. So we were kind of out in front of that one, although I admit I was hemming and hawing on whether or not I actually wanted to make the move. And hopefully some of you guys did it because he's been awesome lately. Derek Lively has also been awesome lately. Some of it correlating to the injury to Maxi Kleba. When Kleba comes back, we might see Lively's minutes drop back down into the teens and 20s sometimes. But right now, he's vastly outplaying Dwight Powell just on a what can he do out there with Luka and Kyrie basis. And, just from a fit standpoint, it makes more sense. Tim Hardaway Jr., the cool down has come. He still hit 4 3-pointers in that game yesterday, but as the field goal percent starts to fall off a cliff, you'll also see his role shrink a little bit. It didn't in this one, but he's also shooting, 15 for 15 at the free throw line so far. That's also coming down. We know what to expect with Tim Hardaway. I don't know why we do the dance every year. People have been asking me on Twitter, why aren't you higher than Tim Hardaway? Well, because I've seen it. We've all seen it 30 times more. He'll go on a heater, he'll hit 7 3-pointers a game for a week and a half, and then he'll hit 2 a game on like 2 for 15 shooting. And it levels off to generally a little outside the top 100. Grizzlies finally got a win. Desmond Bane, ladies and gentlemen. If you're wondering why I was high on Desmond Bane, particularly while Ja is out, it's this. He's number 15 in 9-cat right now, and the steals are probably a bit unsustainably high, but the usage ain't. I like it. No Xavier Tillman with an injury. Bismack Biyombo played 26 minutes. He's always a bit of a crapshoot. Now, he was good in this one because he'll get blocks, he'll get rebounds, but he's not that great at field goal percent. Sort of a weird thing with him. He's a bad finisher. Has been throughout his entire career, but he's a very good rebounder, good rim protector. And Memphis may just sort of give that a shot. He was a plus 18 in this ball game. But you know who had the best plus minus on the whole Grizzlies? The guy we've been secretly watching out of the corner of our eye, Luke Kennard. He was a plus, get this, 30 in 31 and a half minutes. It feels like he needs to be out there. I know he's not a great defender, but he has such a quick trigger from 3, and he is a top 5 3-point shooter in the NBA. That's just a guy that needs to be out on the court. Now, what I don't know, and it hasn't been all that clear, is whether they've been in kind of ramp-up mode for him or whether this was more of a spot play kind of thing. But his minutes have gone up in every game he's played so far this year. He played 15 in the season opener, got hurt, missed 3 ball games, then played 21 against Utah, 27 in the first one, the loss at Portland, and now 32 in this one. Maybe some of it has to do with whether or not his shot is going down. But a guy that if he plays 30 minutes a game, he's probably going to hit 3 or 4 3-pointers a night. So don't write him off. I don't think you need to pick him up because nobody's going to be fighting you to go get Luke Kennard right now. But just know that we're watching it. And if the moment hits, we want to be ready. Robert Williams hurt his knee over on the Portland side. It's why he was done after 11 minutes. Let's hope it's not too bad, but it is the one that wears a brace. I think that's the right. So, not that DeAndre Ayton needed necessarily more opportunity at the center spot, but now there's legitimately nobody coming for his minutes. There's like no backup in Portland. They may run small from time to time. I mean, they have to because Ayton can't play 48 minutes a game. But so far this year, Ayton, who's number 19, by the way, is playing 30 minutes a game. You could very easily see that get up to 32 or even 33, depending on how long Time Lord is out and how much they want to play Ayton, who's still not taking that many shots, but 13 and a half rebounds a game. I think, does that lead the NBA right? No, he's behind Domantas Sabonis, but that's second in the NBA, and that's a number that maybe could even go up if his minutes increase. Otherwise, I don't think we have to worry about much with Portland. It's sort of the usual crowd, and now we've gotten through a whopping 10 teams, so we better hustle a little bit if we're ever going to get through this show. We talked Phoenix already. We'll be back towards Saturday. Hey, while we move back towards Saturday, quick reminder, everybody, find me on social media at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. And if you're joining us late and watching live, and many of you did, please do take a moment to like. That's it. Just take a moment to like. First coughing fit of the show. Please take a moment to like. If you haven't, feel so inclined to subscribe. And those listening on pods, please also do the same. And I'll also remind all of you guys of our buddies at Manscaped in a moment here, but we're not going to do that just yet. I'll probably do that maybe when we get through Saturday's games. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that plan. You don't like that plan? Too damn bad. So, Philly. Now, we got a couple of things here. First of all, Rob Covington did get up to 18 minutes, but we also just found out that Nick Batum is likely to make his Sixers debut tonight. So, what does that do to everybody? We don't know exactly. They're actually playing relatively well right now, which I kind of thought would happen, this sort of magic of getting the hardened stuff out of their hair. Sixers are 4-1. I think I actually said on was I on VSiN? Yeah, I think I was on VSiN with Gil that he was like, who do you think is going to surprise in the East? I was like, I think the Sixers are actually still going to be pretty good. One thing I don't like on the Sixers right now is DeAnthony Melton's minutes, which are not at all where we need them to be. 25 minutes a game is enough for him if he's a big-time usage dude, but not if he's, third, fourth, fifth, sixth option type, which is what he's generally going to be in Philadelphia. Steals are still fine, but he's also shooting 28.5%. And that to me is why we need to hang on a little bit, because it feels like once that number starts to get back up into the 40s, which is where it is, usually low 40s for him, then everything else is going to be okay. But he's ice cold. He's forcing it. Things are not dropping. So guys like Pat Beverly are getting more time. Covington, Korkmaz, all of these guys are getting opportunity while Melton starts to sort this thing out. But he's the starting shooting guard, and he's the guy that they want to be functional. He's just been bad so far. Talked Charlotte already. Indy, what a pain in the ass. Indiana Pacers are such a pain in the ass. I don't know that there's a nice way to put it. Halliburton's going to get his. Miles Turner's going to get his. I believe Bruce Brown is going to get his. His minutes are going to be fine, but you're going to see the fantasy stuff sort of bounce around just because, there are days where he's going to take more shots. One thing I think we do see out of Brown is more rebounding and assists as the season goes. He still hasn't blocked a shot on the year. So a lot of things for him should slowly tick upward, and his opportunity is fine. So that's where I'm not really concerned on the Bruce Brown front. What I'd love to see is anybody else play themselves into a very consistent role. Now, Buddy Hield is someone we've talked about as kind of a playable stash, because some games he is good and some games he's just sort of non-existent. But the Pacers have made it pretty clear he's not part of their future there. So the best thing we can hope for is a move for Hield. Instead, this was a better ball game for him. Great. The next one might be good again. I don't think Benedict Mathurin is a 9-cap player. Nothing I've seen this year has had me move off of that position from last season. And then the hope, I guess, is that someone like maybe Jalen Smith can overtake Obi Toppin and get 25, 26 consistent minutes, but nobody is so far, and so it's just headache city. Atlanta, New Orleans. This was a Jalen Johnson start. We got some word that the matchup, if we're looking at the Jalen Johnson Saddiq Bey thing on a day-to-day basis, it is pretty heavily built in who the opposing wing is. So they want Jalen Johnson to guard other teams' better offensive players, and Saddiq Bey then comes off the bench as more of a three-point gunning specialist. So in this one, you had Brandon Ingram, you had Zion on the other side to worry about. So Johnson got the start. The Hawks tonight, I think they play a team that doesn't have a great wing. We'll get to that in a minute. So maybe this might be a Saddiq Bey start night. Either way, you're still holding both just to kind of see how this goes. Because, again, we're only 2 weeks into this thing. Bey got off to a really good steals start, but we could maybe even see his threes inch up a little bit. Jalen Johnson's just been amazing no matter where he's been. So there's obviously no move coming there. And nothing else really to talk about, because Onyeka Okongwu is great in limited minutes, and I'm so sick of people asking if they should drop him. He's number 50, guys, in 22.5 minutes a game in 9-cat. 5-0. That's the rank right now. He's not even blocking many shots yet. News on the Pelican side is unfortunate. CJ McCollum has a small pneumothorax, which is when the lung partially collapses due to air in the internal body space that then creates pressure against the lung. This is something he's had before, actually. Had one in Portland early in the season when he was traded to the Pelicans, and he missed about a month and a half, if I'm not mistaken. What does this mean? Well, it remains to be seen, because when Brandon Ingram was out, we saw some good games out of Jordan Hawkins. Then a bunch of guys were out, and Dyson Daniels actually had the better ball game. McCollum is the de facto point guard on this club, so maybe that means Dyson Daniels gets the better shot at it, but also, does he get to take any shots? What's his job going to be out there? Just to hand the ball to somebody and see what these guys do minutes-wise, fantasy-wise, before I make a move. I don't have 2 roster slots to spare on Hawkins and Dyson Daniels for a week while we figure out which of them, if either, is going to be worth rostering. So I think we can probably just watch one more game. This also helps Herb Jones, by the way, while we're waiting on Trey Murphy. Lakers, Christian Wood played 29 minutes in this game, although basically everybody of note on the Lakers was out, as evidenced by the fact that Cam Reddish was starting. Christian Wood and Max Christie were basically the only bench players that did anything at all. Jackson Hayes played 11 minutes, but he sprained his ankle. Sounds like they may get Taurean Prince back for the next one, but it's an injury mess for the Lakers' depth right now, which isn't exactly what they wanted, because that means they're going to have to play LeBron more and AD more, and the main guys are going to have to log heavy minutes. Not good for their long-term health, but good from a fantasy standpoint, because Austin Reeves woke up. AD is the number 1 player in fantasy basketball, and LeBron's been playing more than they were hoping he had to, which, again, I think is a number that probably starts to taper off if the Lakers can ever get fully healthy. What does it mean for Christian Wood? Well, he's a hold right now. Even if he wasn't as good in this ball game, the opportunity was there, and I think they like the twin bigs lineup most of the time. Magic are an interesting sort. We all collectively thought that Mo Wagner would have a better opportunity with Wendell Carter Jr. going down, but it was actually Goga Batadze who played 26 minutes and had 10 points, 10 boards, and 5 blocks here. Wagner had a good line in 19 minutes off the bench, but 19 minutes isn't enough for us to reliably say he's going to be there. I think tonight is going to give us a pretty good answer to what to do with this club, which might be nothing, by the way, because in this one, Goga got extra playing time because the Lakers are big. Anthony Davis is big. Christian Wood is big. LeBron is big. You need that size to deal with the front court. Wagner, tough, by the way, but he's going to get roasted on defense by some of those dudes in a way that maybe Batadze can kind of hold his own a little bit better. Against a team like the Mavericks, however, that's a team that's just going to space it out. The center is a rim runner. Luka, Kyrie, those guys are going to get you in a pick and roll out at the perimeter over and over and over again. Do we see the Magic go small? Do we see Wagner and Batadze split minutes a little tighter? This game, I think, is going to answer a lot of questions on which of those players is the play, if either, during the Wendell Carter Jr. absence. Paolo's had a couple of good ball games. That's fine. He's not a guy that I'm dealing with in 9-cat. Jalen Suggs, 9 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, a steal, and a block. If ever a shot could fall for him, he'd really move up in the boards. And I'm still very much into the Jalen Suggs experience so far this year. So I'll keep riding on that one. Cole Anthony, figured he would do a little bit more with Markelle Fultz still out and Gary Trent also out, but it just sort of, I don't know. You know me. I can't really bring myself to trust Cole Anthony. He's a better head-to-head guy because he can score a bit and he can do a few things okay, but just not enough things. And then Anthony Black was actually the point guard who got the start in this one, but I'm going to need to see more than that in 30 minutes if I'm going to start getting excited about him. Boston, the only note on this ball game is Derek White missed this one for the birth of his second child, and Al Horford got the start. That was fun. Good to know, by the way, because basically that's telling us that if anybody misses the game for Boston, Al Horford is the next man up. So be ready to throw Big Al on your big burger board. No Ben Simmons on the Brooklyn side. This is a back-to-back. They were just giving him a night off. They're trying to keep his actual back. I'll say back as many times as I can in that sentence from getting messy this season. Otherwise, no massive surprises. We did get word over the weekend that Nick Claxton is dealing with a high ankle sprain. They were sort of a little bit coy about bringing us that information until they had to, which means you can get more out of Dorian Finney-Smith. We thought this might be, a week and a half type of thing. Maybe it'll be a few. He's been a really good fill-in for Claxton on the fantasy side. I see no reason why that should slow down anytime soon. Royce O'Neal got the fill-in for Ben Simmons here, shot the ball horrifically, but when Ben misses his next planned off day, I think you can probably assume Royce O'Neal's the guy that gets the spot start for that one as well. And Cam Thomas warmed back up a little bit for this one. He's a hold. I do think everybody's job is going to change a little bit when Cam Johnson comes back, but I think we can also probably kind of cross that bridge when we get there. I kept saying that I believed in Malik Monk over Davion Mitchell as the De'Aaron Fox replacement. Mitchell had a good first game with Fox out, but it was indeed Malik Monk here who put up the big line. So that's where I'm going to continue to focus my efforts. Sacramento got blitzed in this game, so probably just sort of throw the rest of the box score out. And if your Kings survived this one, call it a baby size win. For Houston, the starters, with the exception of Jalen Green, all put up nice fantasy lines again. Jalen Green is kind of the one starter that I don't really trust on that side. Dylan Brooks remains a crazy sell high. I mean, everything he's throwing at the rim is going in right now. Good to see Jabari Smith Jr. He's been starting to get going a little bit. I still have trouble kind of trusting him on the day-to-day basis, but also repeat the same thing we've been saying, which is that his game does translate pretty well to fantasy if he can make a shot. Freddie VanVleet had 2 blocks in this one. I don't know when he's going to start getting a whole bunch of steals, because that's probably why you drafted him. He's averaging only 0.6 a ball game. That's a number that could go up by a full steal before this season's done. What does that mean? Well, so far so good, really. For a lot of these guys. Where's Şengün at? 56 in 9-cat. Freddie's 52, but the steals haven't been there yet. Şengün is 56, but the blocks haven't really been there yet. Who else? Who am I forgetting? Well, Dylan Brooks is... The Dylan Brooks thing is beyond absurd. He's number 34. Nobody's going to fall off a cliff harder when he hits it. Steals will come down, field goal percent comes down, threes come down, scoring comes down, free throw comes down. It's all a matter of time, and you probably can't get much for him because everybody knows it. So just ride it out, man. Walker Kessler, only 22 minutes against Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. That's a really big disappointment. I thought this was going to be a game where he could kind of get loose a little bit. He's number 155 in 9-cat. Luckily, he's still blocking 2 shots a game because that's the only reason that he's inside the top 200. I think you might be able to get Kessler for a top 80 type player right now. And if you can, I very much would. Taylor Horton-Tucker is torturing me because all I want to do is drop him. And then every time I get really close to doing it everywhere, he has a couple of decent ball games in a row. People are very excited about him. I just can't get over the percentages, man. He has to be so good in other things to overcome the terrible shooting and bad free throws. And while he's doing fine in steals and assists, it's not enough. It's not enough to overcome the bad stuff. So I have no problem with folks moving on from THT. He's number 138 in 9-cat. The reason you would hang on is the expectation that at some point the Jazz are just like, whatever, THT, do whatever the hell you want. And then things get wild and woolly for him, and that would be a good thing. I feel kind of the same way about Jordan Clarkson. You guys know that already. Slow-mo. Kyle Anderson finally had a good ball game. That got him back into the conversation. He's now number 94 in 9-cat, and this is why you hang on, because the minutes had been there. Stats just weren't right. Everything else, pretty normal. I do love me some Naz Reid. I think Naz Reid is a play, by the way. I think he's an ad and a play, if I haven't said that or I haven't been clear about that before. Naz Reid is a play. He just racks up fantasy stats, and he does it so damn fast. The Bulls are in trouble. They're 2-5. And I think I said it throughout the damn draft season, is that the one thing that scared me, the only thing that scared me with the Bulls, was them getting off to a terrible start. Even an okay start would have been good enough, but they have gotten off to a terrible start. Fantasy stats have been like enough to survive. Not great, but like DeMar is 71 because his shot isn't dropping. And Levine is 120 because his shot isn't dropping. And Vooch, I think, has been the best of the three. No, he's 76. He's right next to DeMar, basically, because his free throws aren't really dropping. Although Vooch has been fine by and large, and a lot of the guys in front of him will kind of slowly start to fall back. The fear is that this thing gets blown up early. Of course, on the other side of that, like, where do we think DeMar is going to go where he's not going to get to do a bunch of stuff? So I'm not that worried about it. Like, somebody trades for Vooch, he's going to get to play. Somebody trades for DeMar, he's going to get to play. Same story for Zach LaVine. So don't panic on these guys. It's probably a buy low, honestly. Not even just that they're going to stay on the Bulls, but like, they're not going to shut these guys down in November. Is the fear that the Bulls are awful all year, nobody gets traded, and they get shut down in late March? Because that's a long time from now. I think you can probably buy low on some of those dudes. Denver, we do have a storyline for the first time in a while, and that's Jamal Murray with a hamstring pull. Reggie Jackson immediately picked up his minutes. He had 16 points and 3 assists. The question, of course, now is, can Reggie Jackson's fantasy game translate to 9-cat? Because historically, the answer's been not really, unless he's been the focal point on offense, which hasn't been the case since his early days in Detroit. But we've also seen having Nikola Jokic as a teammate makes everybody good at fantasy because everybody shoots freaking, 4 or 5% better when Jokic is just getting them completely wide open looks all the time. See Aaron Gordon. See KCP. See Michael Porter Jr. See everybody that he plays with. He just makes them so much better that maybe we get an not efficient, but like less not efficient player or version of Reggie Jackson. You pick him up in points leagues because he's probably going to get some shots. I don't know about 9-cat. I think you could wait and see how this next ball game goes for Denver before making the move there. But, if you really wanted to do it, I sort of wouldn't stop you. And now let's play the game we play every week, which is who played on Friday that didn't go over the weekend. Cleveland we talked about. Indy we talked about. The Knicks and the Bucks. There we go. There's a couple of clubs we haven't talked about. Josh Hart filling in for RJ Barrett, played 36 minutes. I'm more interested in what Hart's going to do when he's back to coming off the bench because he hadn't got up to 30 minutes in that role. But if he does, then he's an auto ad because we saw last year in New York, Josh Hart in 30 minutes off the bench was like a top 60, top 65 kind of dude. And that's probably not somebody you want to leave on waiver wires, especially now while he's collecting these fill-in minutes. So if you have Josh Hart, try to wait it out. If you don't, he's probably worth sitting on, again, to kind of see how the RJ Barrett return goes for him. If you're hanging out with Emmanuel quickly, I don't think he's worth holding in 9-cat roto. If you're in a head-to-head build where the stuff that he doesn't do at all doesn't hurt you as much, meaning like usually a field goal percent negative, doesn't get steals, doesn't get blocks, doesn't really pass all that much for a point guard type. Rebounds have been higher than expected. If that type of stuff doesn't sink your team, okay, but you can probably find somebody better on the wire in most category league formats. I don't have too many questions about the Bucks these days. Chris Middleton slowly ramping up the minutes. Dame bounced back. Giannis will eventually get it figured out as well. The big news was, of course, Brook Lopez getting an 8-block ball game on Friday and basically rehabilitating his fantasy value overnight. He's up to number 73, and that's shooting 40% from the field, which is a number we assume is probably going to come up. Everything else for him feels mostly repeatable. I may have seen the rebounds come up from 4 also. I think Brook Lopez is kind of near his floor right now. They did, by the way, switch up their defensive scheme in this ball game. The Bucks went back into a drop. That's really good for Brook because that means everybody's coming right at him, and he's going to block a bunch of shots with that going on. What other games? Who else didn't play over the weekend? The Thunder didn't play over the weekend. Also, the Wizards, the Heat, and that's it. All right, let's get Thunder, Wizards, Heat, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. Chet Holmgren's been amazing. Lou Dort was the guy who got the extra stuff with SGA sidelined. Yeah, he's not going to shoot 75% on 6 3-pointers, so no, I'm not taking the Lou Dort plunge. Plus, Shea actually got upgraded from out to questionable this morning. So good news on the Gilgeous-Alexander front. You may not have to lose him for another ball game, which I have a bunch of Shea shares in fantasy, and that would really be helpful if he came back early. Washington sucks. I mean, they're really, really bad. They're 1-4 so far. Their offense has no flow. There's no ball movement. I don't know how they're going to fix that. unless they let Tyus Jones run the offense. But guys like Jordan Poole aren't, I mean, he wants to just have ball in hand. Now, to Poole's credit, he did have 6 assists and 4 steals in this game, and he shot the ball better, but he was also a minus 21. The starting unit in particular was just getting throttled because they're bad. Daniel Gafford played 20 minutes, hurt his ankle again. Yeesh. The funny thing about Gafford is that everybody had sort of pegged him as being an injury-prone dude, but he played in, I think, 77 games last year, and then he immediately gets off to an injury-prone start to this season. Hang on. He's had some stuff sideline him. Ultimately, I think his minutes do get up into that 25 to 28 range most nights, and he just hasn't really been there yet. So give it some more time before we panic on Gafford. Getting a lot of Denny Avdia questions. He actually left this ball game with an ankle tweak also, as you can see on your screen if you're watching with us. He's been better than expected, mostly because he's turned the ball over less than expected. Last year, he had more ball handling duties at the end of the year, and he turned it over a ton. So far this year, he's at 13 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, but only 1.2 turnovers. That's the good news for him. I'm not really sure which direction Avdia goes. I'm not big into Denny, despite being a fellow Hebrew. I'm not that big into Denny Avdia. I need to see a sustained fantasy performance out of him. Kuzma's been kind of impressive so far. I think his efficiency probably comes down from where it's at, which is we have to go based on what we know in the past. I just need to see this team not look so clunky. And I guess the Heat are an okay defensive team, but geez. On the Miami side, I'm keeping one eye on Josh Richardson, but maybe we should keep one eye on Duncan Robinson also, because he had 18 points and 4 3-pointers so far this year. Duncan's just been a 3-point streamer. So far this year, Josh Richardson has not looked healthy enough to be a pickup. But if they kind of turn things in his direction, maybe he becomes an interesting play because, historically, Josh Richardson has a pretty good fantasy game. Also, no Caleb Martin, and Kevin Love was a healthy DNP. So I don't know what the hell's going on with the Heat front court. Maybe they're just sort of leaving it open for a hot hand thing. Is it going to be Haywood Highsmith? Is it going to be Duncan Robinson? Right now, as long as it's not any of them consistently, then we don't need to have any of them on our rosters consistently. And that is your look back, reverse chronological lightning round style. Let's quickly take a look at what's going on tonight on Monday. It's a lot, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 game Monday. Holy sweet merciful heavens, that's a lot. And you thought my voice was tired before. I do have to keep my voice in check. So there's a pretty real chance we're not going over the 1 hour mark in this show, and I appreciate you guys all understanding. What I'll probably do is zip through the chat room to see if there are questions that are broadly applicable, as opposed to this sort of everybody gets their one question about their own team stuff. If you have questions about your own team that I'm not able to get to on podcasts, come hang out with us on Discord. Did I fix that, by the way? Anybody that's in the chat room right now or even after the fact, you can let me know. Did I fix the link in the show description finally? I tried to. I kept replacing it. Anyway, I'm going to throw the link to our Discord in the live chat right now. So anybody that's watching now or after the fact, you should be able to see it. I'll put it up on the screen as well. That's a free Discord. But again, if you want questions answered, you want the premium Discord, which is, it's actually the same link. So sort of a weird way for me to present it, but you do need to get a fantasy pass and then let a mod know that you got that fantasy pass. So that starts at just $6 a month. If you get the fantasy pass, you let a mod in Discord know. They'll turn on the hidden rooms. One of those is a 24/7 live chat where you can ask all of these questions. So fun for a ton. They're hungry hippos. I am at Dan Bespers on Twitter, so please do find me over there before we get to this Monday recap. Or Monday look ahead, I should say. And now let's plow through this and see if we have time for a question or two. Tonight, what are we watching for tonight? There's a lot going on this evening. I'm going to speed through it. For the Wizards, Daniel Gafford, Denny Avdia, we just talked about that. For the Sixers, we're watching about new guy inclusion and the minutes for DeAnthony Melton. And again, we just talked about a lot of this in the weekend recap, but I just want to make sure everybody knows kind of what my eyeballs are on. Mavericks. Derek Lively, he's having a party right now with no Maxi Kleba. Grant Williams also, he's been terrific, but it does feel like that field goal percent has to start to come down at some point. For the Magic, Jalen Suggs, the Mo Wagner, Goga Batadze stuff going on. Spurs, not much really. Maybe can anybody step into the Devin Vassell minutes, but it's really a lot of like, when can we get our buy low on the efficiency stuff? Pacers, I mean, we can just continue to hope and pray that eventually someone settles into a role, but not yet, as my kids like to say. For the Warriors, does Clay sit out the back-to-back? So that would be a Moses Moody burger board night. By the way, burger board, that's shorthand for injury replacement streamer. Right? Isn't it more fun to say burger board? Andrew Wiggins, Draymond, and CP3, that's the other stuff there. For the Pistons, Marcus Sasser, Alec Burks, all that stuff. I think Burks was doubtful last I saw for this one. Maybe he gets upgraded as we go, so keep an eye on that. The Clippers. The Clippers didn't play the whole weekend, so we don't even need to talk about them. But James Harden, likely to make his Clippers debut. Man, you talk about burying the lead on this show. James Harden, likely to make his Clippers debut this evening. That's a story and a half, isn't it? Knicks, we talked about Josh Hart. Lakers, it's Christian Wood. Heat, Josh Richardson. Oh, is Jimmy Butler still a buy low? I don't know. I think he's still ranked in the 70s. So by that count, he should 62, by the way. But he's only shooting 40%. So you know that's coming way up. The assists are going to come with it. So I would think the answer is yes to a Jimmy Butler buy low, but I don't know what it would take to get him. I think if you can get Jimmy Butler for maybe someone who you think is going to finish like near 40, but is overperforming, maybe that's the path there. Kind of need to think on that one. Not a great discussion to have in your own brain in the middle of a live podcast. Oops. Bucks, nothing. Nets, nothing. Kings, the Fox fill-in stuff, but I do still think it's Malik Monk. Rockets, nothing. Celtics, if Derek White is back, I think we just saw that he wasn't at shoot-around, but that might just be because he's traveling. Hopefully nothing going on with his new kid. You'd figure that would be the only reason that he would have to stay back with family. But assuming Derek White's back, then Al Horford is back off the board. Timberwolves, we got a good one out of Kyle Anderson, pushing him inside the top 100. Also, Naz Reid has been inside the top 100. You guys know that I'm high on the Wolves this year. It's a weird way to phrase it, but I did it. I think they're going to have a really good season. The Anthony Edwards growth, Cat being healthy, just a year of like guys learning how to play together. And I just feel like Mike Conley, not that his fantasy value is going to be amazing, but I just think Conley provides exactly what that team needs from a stabilizing standpoint. For the Hawks, nothing beyond the typical Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey watch. Thunder, no, well, I guess whether or not SGA is going to play. That's the obvious one. The Jazz, Walker Kessler. The question I have on Walker Kessler, and I typed this on social, is he an extreme buy low? Meaning, like, could you get him for top 80, top 90, and then hope for top 30? Or is he only kind of a medium-sized buy low, which is, could you get him for 80 or 90, but maybe his target is only like 60 or 70 instead? Either way, I think he's a buy low. The question is, how far do you think he goes forward from where he is right now? And then I'm just going to keep fighting this mental battle with myself on whether Taylor Horton Tucker belongs on my fantasy team. I still think the answer is probably no, but we'll see. Chicago, nothing really. Very few teams need to win more than they do. Pels, who steps up for CJ McCollum in game one? That's a big one to keep an eye on. Dyson Daniels, Jordan Hawkins. Is it just more for Herb to keep him well above the cut line? What is the CJ fallout? Because we're going to have a month plus probably to work on it. And hopefully we get a nice data point tonight. And then the Nuggets, we just talked about Reggie Jackson. That's the one lingering thing on that side. So that's your Monday look ahead. That's your weekend in review. We got about 3 minutes. I'm going to scroll up to the top of the chat room and try to find, holy moly, there are a lot of questions here. I'm really sorry, guys, in advance, letting you know again, we are not getting to all of these questions because I need my voice for the second show. I actually have my first play-by-play gigs of the basketball season later this week. So I just can't cook myself the way I did last week. So it's not going to be great podcasting here for a minute, but you guys are going to watch me scan the live chat board for questions that I think apply to everyone. Here's a good one. Mitso, good question. Do we expect Nick Claxton to miss another 4 weeks? If yes, is he a drop in a league that doesn't have an IR spot? The answer is no to the drop part. Nick Claxton was a top 30 fantasy player last year. He's only played 1 game. I think the expectation for me is that he does miss probably another 3 or 4 weeks, but you got to hold because top 50 players just don't grow on trees. And typically the rule is if there's a top 50 player out there, you stash for 6 weeks. More than that, you think about dropping because it could break your team, but you got to find a way to just hold on here and hope for the best. Do I have any faith in Gary Trent for the rest of the year? Not as long as he's on the Raptors. What else we got here? You guys, again, are going to listen to me scanning. Let's see. Do you drop Xavier Tillman in a points league or give him one more shot? I'll do you one better, Delonte. I think I drop him in all formats. Now that they have Biyombo, who they kind of trust, and Aldama's back, I don't think that Tillman's going to get minutes except against very large big men, and also when he's healthy. I'm thinking of benching DeAnthony Melton till he plays better, or should I drop? I would prefer a bench on that one. Is Derek Lively worth a number 1 waiver claim? I don't know how many of you guys are dealing with this same problem, but I'm going to say yes. I'm not going to get into straight trades right now either, but this is Jordan Poole for OG Anunoby, and I would go OG on that one. You guys know I'm not a big Jordan Poole guy. Let's see here. What do we got? Boop-a-doop-a-doo. Max Strus or Bruce Brown? Who do I prefer? I'm going to go Strus by a nose. I think they both could end up in the 90 range, but it does feel like Max could maybe push a little farther forward than that. Let's see here. What else we got in the chat room? A lot of chat. Is Cam Johnson coming back anytime soon? I would just set your mental clock to Cam Johnson coming back in like a week and a half. I mean, set your mental clock to 2 weeks. Say expect him back by like November 20th. And if he's back sooner than that, then you just feel like you won. All right. Let's see what else we got that could apply to everybody. What's the outlook for Tyus Jones on this very bad team? That's a good question. The hope is that they start to let him do more because he's the only guy that can actually distribute a basketball. My target for him is no longer top 50 with as bad as that team looks. My target is probably more like top 80. So that's where we'll put that one. Do you prefer Karis LeVert or Kyle Anderson in Roto? That's going to be Kyle Anderson. That's going to be Kyle Anderson on that one. Kyrie or Cade Cunningham. This is Kyrie, and it's not even in the ballpark. Is Jaden McDaniels worth an ad in a 12-team head-to-head league? He's borderline. You know, he sat right on that like 110 range last year, which if he gets fully healthy, that probably is startable in head-to-head. Probably not in 12-team games cap roto, oddly enough. That's like right on that area where the head-to-head, you can extend your rank board a little bit farther. So I'm going to say yes for head-to-head and no for roto. Would you do quickly for CP3? Yeah, I'll take Chris Paul on that one. Trae Young or Tyrese Maxey rest of season. This is very format dependent. You know, if you're head-to-head, you're probably looking for all those assists. For me personally, if we're going vacuum, I prefer Tyrese Maxey. I'm not a big Trae Young guy, but there's also a little bit of sort of like a buy low, sell high thing going on here because Trae's probably not also going to be outside the top 60. He'll shoot better than 35%. So do they come together like Trae Young somewhere near 40 and Maxey somewhere near 30 and 9-cat? That's why I think you're probably going kind of team build mode. You might go Trae, and then when he goes on one of his mega heaters, then maybe you try to move him for somebody that's even better. See if I can get one or two more questions here. How do you feel about RJ Barrett? I think he's horrible for 9 category leagues, and I think you should cast him off into the sun. Points leagues, you can hang on. There's a second after this question that says, should I drop him for Derek Lively? Category leagues, yes. Coughing fit number 2 in the books. What's a realistic expectation for Jalen Johnson rest of season? I mean, you're seeing it, man. He's top 70. He's terrific. Amazing athlete, and he's fitting in great. Better than I think we ever expected right out of the chute here. Should I trade Kyrie Irving for Damian Lillard? I would like the Dame side. There's just a safety there that Dame is going to try to play anytime he can, and I just don't know that that's the truth on the Kyrie side. Are there any good resources for how serious player injuries are? Well, it's all about kind of reading the tea leaves because teams are not very good about reporting injuries these days. Basketball Monsters player page, you saw it as we were going through some of the box scores. They'll give educated guesses on how long they expect guys to be out, but it's all about just following the beat reporters and team feeds and understanding how long guys tend to miss with certain things. So that's the best bet you got there. How are we feeling about Dennis Schroeder? I'm feeling that I completely whiffed on him. He's number 51 in 9-cat right now. I fully expect his three-point shot to fade on him, but also his free throw percent is going to go up. Can he average 9 assists for an entire season? Questionable, but he's very much a 9-cat start all year long, and I didn't know that he was going to get inside the top 100, so I will promptly eat this hat after the show is over. Hey, Dan, is Jordan Poole a bust? Wasn't he on my bust list, or was he just on my I'm too afraid list? He's not going to, I don't think he's going to get anywhere near where he was drafted. I also think he's going to be better than he's been so far because he's shooting 75% at the free throw line, and he's typically a very good foul shooter. I also think you've seen a lot of blowouts artificially depress his minutes down to 17 and a half. 16 shots a game is probably going to go up to 18 as the season goes, so he'll be better than this, but I don't think he's going to be top 40. Let's see. Anything else at the end here that applies to everybody? Is Robert Williams a drop with this injury? Man, if you don't have an injured list slot, you might not have a choice. Let's wait until we get an official word on it, and then we'll have the last thing. Here's an interesting question at the end. Oh, wait. Let's see. What about Trey Murphy? Well, he's very much a stash now with the CJ McCollum stuff. My big fear for Trey Murphy was that he'd come into a team that already had all 3 gunners there. But if one of the 3 usage guys is down, that opens up, Trey Murphy gets now 8 to 12 shots instead of like 6 to 9. That's a huge difference. And I think that might have to be the last one because I got to save some voice for later. And those were sort of the big, broad questions. Hey, come join me and Derek in the afternoon. Get your questions in that chat room. We're going to be covering weekly lineup stuff. We're going to be covering injury. We're going to look at streaming schedule this coming week. There's a lot of really good stuff coming up on that second show today. A lot of you guys joining us. This might be one of the biggest live viewing audiences we've had outside of our trade deadline show. So I got to say, pretty excited about the growth of our YouTube page. You guys are awesome. Keep hanging out with me, and I'll keep doing them. I'm hoping that now with my voice coming back, there's some new show ideas that I want to work into the mix. I want to do some buy low, sell high shows. I've never done those before. If I can have time to do some more kind of streaming guide type shows, I think those could be kind of fun also. Here's a good question. When is the second show? It's going to be between 2 and 2:30 Pacific time. That's when it'll air live. And then obviously folks can watch it after the fact. We just try to get it out there with, an hour or 2 hours before lineup lock so folks can make their decisions on that front. Please do hit the thumbs up. Seriously, there's a lot of you guys hanging out right now. I know there's many, many, many of you that watch after the fact. If we get a big influx of thumbs up at the same time, the show sort of drops into those algorithms on YouTube. I don't fully understand how they work. But obviously, if you've enjoyed hanging out with us, please hit that subscribe button as well. Pod listeners, I would always encourage you to come hang with us on the live side, but I understand a lot of you listen after the fact. It's more relaxing. Listen in the car, whatever. You can't watch it. That's awesome. I love all of you guys the same. Please do head on over to social. Hit me up at Dan Besbris. Join us in Discord. I want to see if I can throw that link back on the screen if I could find it. In the words of the great Bob Uecker, the hell with it. I can't figure out where I posted the Discord link. Is it still what I have? Hey, guess what? It's still the last thing I have on my clipboard, so we'll throw that back up there on the way out. Discord link. See you guys over there. See you guys on social. See you guys later this afternoon.